Hello everyone and welcome back to the Brightworks and another match of Beyond All Reason, where today we're taking a look at a match that was recently played on Ascendancy. Ascendancy, a very interesting map, but I do feel that I need to take an opportunity here right at the start of this cast to let you know that one more time, just before, as of recording this, the day before the fight night is going to be live, I'm going to be hosting the fight night over on the official Beyond All Reason Twitch channel. I'll have an announcement and a link for you in the Discord channel, which will be linked down below. But there should be plenty of other announcements as well. It's going to be a good one, so tune on into that. But anyways, spawning here is the red team leader, spawning in the backline position, spawning on the low ground here of Ascendancy, going for a quadruple mechs opener, a commander that goes by the name of Bobby. Bobby, going to be showing us what they've got here, a 29 open skill and silver chevrons to boot. Going to be having their work cut out for them as they go up against the blue team leader here, hailing from the high seas, but taking their first landlubbery steps. Commander, of course, that goes by the name of Vanaja here. A blue Cortex commander. Going to be going for some of those good old-fashioned Cortex bots. Looks like it's going to be a couple of grunts out on the field first. We've got some construction bots, and we've even got a grave robber here, all nicely queued up for the blue commander. One of the things, well, there's two things I love about Ascendancy. First of all, take a look at that. Every time, I gotta point this out because what a beautiful skybox. I feel like, I feel like a lot of skyboxes aren't as nearly as pretty as Ascendancy's is. But yeah, very, very cool. Look at those mountains, the way it kind of lines up with the hill. Anyways. Details aside, the other thing that I like about Ascendancy is that basically you get a big variety of different matchups, right? So you get this little 2v2 on the southern side here where Stufart and Craven are going to be going up against Chani and Get Klep. The powder blue and I guess cyan blue players down here. Chani, that's the name of Paul Muad'Dib's wife, right? I could be wrong. Anyways, pretty sure that's her name. You also have this kind of 2v2. It's like a disjointed 2v2, right? So it's basically two 1v1s. You have one player, playing in this lane here, and then one player playing in this lane, and then of course they can move up or down to support themselves in between these different areas, so there's a lot of interplay there, but you also, of course, have this tech player back here who's eventually going to get T2 online and headed out to the center here as well. Sometimes that can swing the way that these battles go in the midsection. You've also got this 1v1 going on right here. Usually, if we see the best of the best lined up on this map, it happens to be up on this high ground because there's a lot of metal here and it's a lot of ground to cover. Big, wide open choke points, right, that you have to try and lock down. And oftentimes, that takes a lot of skill to know how to manage and how to control properly, so... Gonna be showing us the very best of the best here from Kajur, the orange commander here, apparently for the red team. Gonna be showing us how it's done. We do have a tick in the backline already. Vanaja suffering from that Armada technological supremacy, mounting a little laser beam, a little, almost like a little laser cutter, right? Like it really doesn't do much damage, but it can eventually cut through metal if it focuses on it enough. And it does manage to snag a metal extractor, already making itself quite valuable. And then, of course, the thing that Ascendancy is most well known for, I feel like, this massive hill that you fight for on the northern high ground here. So you fight up this ramp all the way up here, up to this middle ground where there's a geothermal, and then you fight all the way down into your enemy's base. This is a really lane to fight. This is one of the lanes of all time to fight. Now, this is one of the hardest lanes to fight, and oftentimes whoever wins this can set the pace of the game. Sometimes what we see are long-range plasma cannons set up over here because they can reach basically, I believe, all the way down to here. Like, that's the effective range of an LRPC from up on this cannon is all the way down onto this lower section of the map, right? So you can kill 60%, maybe 80% of the enemy team just by going for LRPCs up here. Otherwise, sometimes we see cheeky strategies like, for instance, units being like wall crawlers, spider bots, that sort of thing, termites crawling down the hills here and into the enemy base. Looks like a grunt has been sent across the map here. An interesting run-by pattern from Vanaja manages to get a grunt into the backline here of Johnny Forbo, the yellow commander here for the red team. Oh, very close, but that grunt does go down before anything pops here, managing to save the day, but definitely causing a little bit of a stir-up for the yellow commander, allowing Aprog, the purple commander, to get a nice little foothold up on the high ground. Reinforcements are on their way and construction bots are moving forward to grab these metal extractors, and as long as there's enough units on the front line here, this shouldn't be the end of the world. Definitely tricky though. You have to make sure that you don't give up too much ground on that high ground, otherwise your team is going to be in a dire way. A couple of tan units running forward. It's a bunch of pawns. Pawns certainly sufficient for blasting down metal extractors and some of these early T1 units. And there we go. If we take these trades one by one, the pawns are going to be more than happy to blast away at a bunch of wind turbines, mexes, ticks, grunts, all sorts of stuff. Running them too close to the wind turbines there, though, and catching a lot of that explosive damage, unfortunately. But still, though, 6, 12, 12 wind turbines and some more going down right here. Ooh, even the LLT will fall right there. Pops into the build power. Very, very annoying. Definitely worth their value. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say that those pawns probably found enough value there to justify their expense. Massive army moving on the northern side. That was a self-destruct over here on the commander. In the back line right now, we're about 5 minutes into the game, which means we're about on time for a standard T2 tech rush. Now, I've almost got this lab up and running just off the metal extractors. Looks like there was a run-by or something that ended up killing one of the mexes here. We'll be rebuilding that shortly, I imagine, with this constructor and the construction turret. Should be no problem to put that back up. And, of course, with this commander lying in the dirt, you can use that 1,000 or so metal now to go ahead and build a whole bunch of T2 construction bots. Getting those construction bots up and running, getting those T2 mexes up and running is really the point there. It does put you in a fabulous position. Oh, no energy for Kajor. Oh, no. No energy for the LLTs means they can't fire at the ticks that they see and just cannot deal with. Both of those ticks would have died right there had there been enough energy for the orange commander, but unfortunately none is available. And it means that those ticks get well into the backline. Now blasting away at the metal extractors. 3.1 metal per second denied right there to the orange commander. Then again, I suppose with those mexes offline, it wasn't really being pumped out anyways. In dire need of a little bit of energy here. There we go. Finally, one of the LLTs manages to muster up the, like, 15 energy or something it takes to shoot the laser beam once. It's a pretty pitiful amount. It's really nothing special. But it's opened up the line here. Grunts charging forward at this point. It's 4 blue grunts on the northern side and then 4 more on the southern side here. Vanaja is so deadly with the run-bys right here, showing us some fabulous grunt micro, coupled right here by the green commander, who instead of going for a regular T2 build, has instead just gone ahead and gone into a full-out grunt spam, continuing to harass down the orange commander. This is effectively turning this, what should be 1v1 lane, into a 2v2, and you can see how much of an effect it's already had. The orange commander expecting a 1v1 and getting a 2v2, playing like it's a 1v1 and trading out, expecting to have efficient trades right there, but actually secretly on defense against 2 commanders instead of 1, means suddenly the base is in shambles. Yeah, Grunt's gonna blast down some more of these pawns in the backline here. As soon as they gain a little bit more APM, they'll be more than happy to step forward and start blasting some of those wind turbines too. There we go. Shuriken in the air, trying to deal with as much of this as possible. They do manage to paralyze those. That's quite nice. Pawn's eventually going to be able to clean a lot of this up, but my goodness, was that quite a bit of damage. And pushing back the lane right here of Kajor quite far as well, denying these metal extractors and allowing Vanaja a lot of extra room to start thinking about expanding forward. We are already going up to a more expensive composition. You can see grave robbers, thugs, and aggravators on the docket so far for the blue commander. Mostly worried about just going ahead and getting some more of that eco stabilized. Oh, nice deacon right there from Cribulicious. Cribulicious? Yeah, Cribulicious. The Seafoam Green Commander here going up against Destroyer 0705, the Tan Commander, managing to deacon down, I want to say about 3 of those Rocketeers right there. Very nicely done, of course. Managing to wipe those off the face of Ascendancy. Shani stepping forward here as well, trying to get her metal extractors up and running, and trying to get them locked down on the seas. Looks like I'm Craven going to deny as much of the naval incursion as possible, but just going for some of those jellyfish. Such a weird decision, right? Because such a complicated decision, I mean, not a weird one from I'm Craven. It's obvious, it's understandable, right, that you'd want to defend your coast, but if you're going for amphibious tanks, then obviously once they pop out of the water, these can't really do anything. And they're not going to be able to stop, say, 5 amphibious tanks in time before they manage to get out of the water here. So it's a bit of a tricky situation, and one solution that I think I like quite a lot is going for a joint task defense, where you go for a couple of LLTs, a couple of jellyfish, and a couple of torpedo launchers. But that does get pricey. That does get really, really expensive really quickly, and so oftentimes that can be the downfall of a commander just as much of a benefit as it can be. When suddenly you've dumped 1,000 metal into static defenses that ultimately get 2 or 3 kills throughout the entirety of the game. Geothermal up and running right here for Aprog, who also plans to go for a vehicle day up on the high ground here. All right, interesting. I don't believe vehicles can traverse this low ground here. In fact, I believe I have a way of checking that. Hold on one second. If I go to this, I say I believe, like I haven't known how to do this forever. Yeah, there you go. So we have a tank selected right now, and the purple here means that it's not traversable. So you can see all the green is where a vehicle would be able to traverse, and all of the pink is where a vehicle wouldn't be able to. So the vehicle lab is really strange to me. Yeah, I'm not sure if Aprog maybe doesn't know about that. Maybe he's just unaware of the fact that not going to be able to send those vehicles to be very offensive. But I suppose, at least for the time being, a couple of Wolverines, maybe a riot tank on the front lines to push back this army wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. We've got Resbots patching up the base back here, but my goodness, did those grunts do some serious damage. Frontline now looking sturdy here for the blue commander. It's all about putting that metal out on the field. You can see this is a lot of pawns here. We're looking at 600 metal worth of pawns. We're looking at about basically the same amount of metal just in the heavier T1 units here, not to mention all the grunts that Vanaja also has on the front line. Those little advantages add up. They add up very slowly, but they definitely add up very surely. Controlling those wreckage fields is key. Destroyer 0705. Now, with quite a bundle of Rocketeers, needs to start trading them out against Cribulicious. Otherwise, things are going to get dire here. Now, I like their spread from Cribulicious quite a bit better here. You can see, of course, the concave quite a bit nicer here. Always want to go for a concave to focus that fire down to the weakest unit. Make sure that you're killing units with every volley rather than just softening them up. You don't want them to be able to fall back and get repaired. Destroyer's Commander taking a little bit of hits here as well, and more of this ticks running by the map as well. Now this is tricky because of course it does mean that there's no tech coming up right here, so the blue team is going to be on their own as far as tech goes. There's no centralized tech upgrades right here, whereas the red commander has gone full blown into that T2 economy, now has the T2 mexes churning out T2 constructors, and is going to have their entire team tech upgraded very, very shortly here. What the red team is paying for that with is of course a shorter lived front line, so you can see a lot of these mexes have been pushed back. Essentially, the difference in metal will be made up by how much of the front line is given up here. But ultimately, I feel like it's not that much. Yeah, 1, 2, maybe 3 mexes given up on the front lines here. Even these mexes still available here for Kajor, the orange commander. Yeah, I'm not sure the advantage the blue team earned from being hyper-aggressive right there is really paying off. And suddenly, well, we should be seeing them pull into the lead here. Looks like a T2 lab is just about up and finished right here for Vanaja. A little bit of metal and solar panels. There's a lot of what I mean by that, of course, is that there's reclaim available here that we can go for if we need to. Vanaja more than happy with this frontline force, confident that it's going to be capable of holding its own and just going ahead and riding it out. A couple of hounds at the bottom causing trouble. Those tanks are definitely in the firing zone, the danger zone. Hounds without radar, though, quite a bit worse than they otherwise would be. Still quite good, though. 4 shots to blast out a Rocketeer. Hard to call that bad. Yeah, certainly connecting in a big way with a lot of these. But oh, as soon as those medium tanks jump on top of them, down they go. Hound's not the sturdiest creatures in the world, so yeah, those medium tanks are more than happy to blast at them. That is mass Whistler right there, or mass Lasher, pardon me. I don't think these Lashers have gotten nearly enough value for their cost here. 1,800 metal for all those Lashers, and all they've really done is get shot at by this gauntlet up here. Juno on the front line from Get Clap, apparently. Going to be, yeah, trying to build a little bit of a anti-scout spam, anti-radar tower here. Interesting to put it that far forward, though. It's a very expensive tower, an asset that you really don't want to lose, and not one that you really need on the front line. It fires a missile, which is a confusion that I often see newer players making. It doesn't really look like a missile silo, does it? Yeah, it just kind of looks like a weird Juno tower or something. Anyway, it fires a big AoE missile that you can launch out onto the map. Definitely very valuable. Hound's coming up. Pumped out of the back line right here. You can see Vanaja going for that OP eco scaling, going into a 12-minute and 43-second double metal extractor, trying to pump out as much metal as possible, trying to get the build power situated, trying to continue to press the advantage. The yellow commander has gone down on the front lines here, I suppose traded out in favor of all those units for the purple commander. Heavy laser tower here blasting away at a lot of this as well. Ultimately, going to be enough to thwart the effects of any kind of push right here. T2 lab coming up simultaneous to unit production. Usually we want to eat up this lab before we go for the T2 construction lab there. Not the end of the world, though. Hovercraft lying in wait right now. Hovercraft are immune to the jellyfish over here, so certainly I'm Craven has the has a run-by path available, or rather I should say that Get Clap has a run-by path available into I'm Craven's base. None of these static defenses are going to be worth anything against the hovercraft here, so if they manage to make it around and catch this T2 lab before it actually comes up and spinning, you could certainly be in a really good position here. This is also another rookie mistake, another mistake that we see newer players making. Going for the T2 lab at the same time as the T2 mexes, you always want to prioritize the T2 mexes because it's way easier to pay for a T2 lab if you've already got the T2 economy, right? It feels like a little bit of a catch-22, but in the way that this game works, so much as the units are traded around and the way that T2 tech happens, yeah, it's definitely better to get a T2 constructor and upgrade all your mexes and then go into your T2 economy, if at all ever you can manage to. Fiends running by. Vanaja relentless with the run-bys today. Trying to get these flame troopers into position right now. The pawns need to jump on top of them all in one big ball. Can't let these fiends take any kind of an efficient trade, otherwise they're going to run away with the win here. It's exactly the fight that Vanaja's hoping for. Kiting the pawns backwards, blasting them down one by one, and my goodness, those flame spewers are lethal. A brutal trade right there is probably 10, maybe 15 pawns go down to just 4 fiends running forward. One of them going to be peeled off here to go harass the backline, and the other 2 headed into the base right now of the yellow commander, who actually has nothing going on back here. No production by that, I mean. Holding on by the skin of their teeth, producing out of this forward lab right now. Suffice it to say, though, Johnny Forbo going to be in quite a lot of trouble here. Shuriken, not a bad option. Trying to paralyze as much of this as possible. Good old-fashioned T1 brawl here in the midsection of the map as well. Looks like a whole bunch of aggregator pushing forward for Dark Synth, using the commander as a glorified resbot to try and reclaim as much of that metal from the front lines as possible and feed it back to the war engine in the backline. No such T2 coming up right here for the pink, or the green commander Dark Synth here. Instead, just going to be pumping out more and more of those T1 units at an ever-increasing rate. I'm a little bit worried for that commander, though. That's a lot of missile trucks. Oh my goodness. 8% per blast from those missile trucks, and they are ruthless in their pursuit of that commander. Missile trucks are somewhat back to a spot where you can mass them. We're starting to see that more and more nowadays. Very, very tricky to get to that point, though, without exactly this kind of thing happening. A bunch of T1 medium tanks jump on top of all this, and just like that, the entire ball of tanks from the brown commander is blasted to smithereens in an instant. It's the exact reason why these aren't consistently massable. It's the reason why you can't keep them alone on their own. You need some sort of other support force. You need Pounders in front, you need Janices in front, you need anything like that. Even the Rocketeers here having a wonderful time pushing forward into these rocket trucks. Agitator's the only thing keeping back the swarm of blue units over here on the southern side. Bull's pushing forward on Karkuz. Down goes the maroon commander. An excellent snipe right there. We're knocking out a whole bunch of static defense as well as a bunch of units. A very efficient trade right there for the cyan blue commander, who is up to T2 tanks at this point, of course, as those bulls have rolled out onto the front lines. The front line for Vanage is still looking fabulous. We're up to a T1, T2 mixed composition at this point, and the commander is stepping forward, ready to build some LOTs and ready to build some metal extractors, and of course, ready to reclaim any of that metal that does become available. Now, because we have a mixed composition here, it does also mean that we have mixed abilities, right? We also have the rocket bots, which outrange those LLTs. It means we have the thugs for a little bit of sturdiness. The Sheldon here, definitely the core firepower of this composition now. Mauser now blasting away at the front lines. I feel like he's a little loud. I'm gonna turn it down just a smidge. There we go. That sounds a little better, eh? Mauser are quite powerful. They're an interesting kind of siege unit for their cost. 320 metal. Extremely, extremely efficient. Outranging basically all of the T1 static defenses and laying down a whopping amount of firepower. They're a dangerous tool out on the front lines. Easy to overcommit to them, though. Yeah, very, very easy to overcommit to them. Suddenly finding yourself with way, way more, way more of those Mauser or Quaker than you actually need, and suddenly you're overwhelmed by just a bunch of Sprinter or something like that. Lightning tanks or salamanders, anything like that. Shuriken still being pesky here. Anti-air towers doing their very best for Vanaja, trying to clear the skies of those very pesky Bladewing EMP paralytic drones. I believe they're a drone, right? Yeah, light paralyzer drone. I like this from the air player. I'm glad to see that we're spreading around the Shuriken help here, trying to catch everybody up. We do have a little bit of a hound ball building up for Destroyer here as well, but we should see T2 units any moment. No, okay, well, definitely behind the curve right now. Dark Synth definitely has the funds to go for a T2 lap, but is a little bit behind as far as that goes. Meanwhile, some of those T2 tanks did roll out of the lab right here for the pink commander. I'm Craven, but just a little bit behind that eco game, and it means all the difference right here. Surprising, considering the fact that the eco was so much further along for the red team, and still the pink player ended up being a little bit further behind. I think it's exactly what I was talking about earlier. You build that lab just a little too early. You build it before those T2 mexes, you end up in a really unfortunate position, because after all, that is about 3,000 metal worth of laboratory, which could easily have been all 3 of those mexes. Those rocket trucks from the early game serving a critical purpose in the late game here as anti-air, destroying loads of those Shuriken, denying their help across the battlefield here any longer. Northern side in shambles here as well, as that yellow laboratory has been blasted down. We do have a constructor, and we do have another lab built up in the backline over here. Things are looking dire, though. The yellow T2 constructor sitting idly in the back of this laboratory, not upgrading the T2 mexes, not upgrading anything, and so I have to say that probably this is looking like a pretty bad situation right now for the yellow commander, all things considered. That being said, Grunt's pretty much as good a counter to Sheldon in the T1 to T2 era as you're gonna find. Still, though, the Sheldon pack a wallop. Orange Commander goes down. Sheldon relentless in their firepower. They outrange a lot of different stuff in the T2 era, which makes them extremely difficult to play against because they can kite almost infinitely. With a couple of sumos in front here, I think this Sheldon ball would be unstoppable. The only thing causing trouble right now is this tick swarm that is difficult to ignore. Yeah, the Sheldon have to be so careful. If they overstep here, they can be overrun easily, and you have to be really careful about that. Little ambulance there, that was interesting. Hounds blasting away at this front line over here. They're going to be more than sufficient to deal with a bunch of this T1 trash at this point as well. Yeah, there we go. Thugs, aggravators, all sorts of stuff falling right here. Appreciate they were switching these between their Gauss cannon and their heavy cannon. Their Gauss cannon makes them quite a bit better against moving targets. Their heavy cannon, much, much better against static targets. Essentially, the difference being the speed of the projectile, and the heavy cannon does a little bit more damage. So it's less likely that it's going to connect, but when it does, it connects in a big way, which is obviously why it's so much better against those static targets. T2 continuing to harass this northern side, and this front line is looking dangerous. Now up 2 versus 2 now. The red commander has pivoted northward here to try and lend some support towards the orange commander, who's been up against the spam of the green commander as well as the harassment of the blue. Looks like the Sheldon are diving forward here. Bit of an interesting move right there from Vanaja, I think. Yeah, ultimately going to micro backwards here. There we go, mammoth tank on the front lines. Yeah, blue commander going to be able to de-gun down a lot of those. Will it escape with its life? I'm not so certain. Boom goes the blue commanders. Greatly scratching up the mammoth tank right there, my goodness. A little bit of unfortunate positioning, but with that mammoth tank and with a couple of sumos, I think we're going to be more than happy, or a couple of manticore, pardon me, the anti-air bots. Yeah, we're going to be more than happy to push forward here. Those mammoth can really lock down that center section quite nicely. Setting up a T2 lab on this front line here as well. Wow, we've got quite a lot of mammoths going up, actually. We've got 2 laboratories both producing at the same time. We've got this one on the back line that I imagine must be eaten up here at some point. That tick spam has been real nice, cries out Vanaj, and I think it's absolutely true. One of the most prominent use cases for the tick is, of course, just its massive vision range, meaning that it's an ideal unit to send headfirst charging towards the enemy, just to get vision of where their units are. Much easier to worry about than spy bots. It's essentially just a constant price you pay rather than the steep single-time costs that you pay for a spy bot. And quite effective. Yeah, really, really quite effective. The blue team definitely in control of this match here. There are different lines here that look like they might be winnable for the red team. But my goodness, so much overinvestment into those T1 static defenses. We're well into the T2 era here. And the agitators are getting some value. Okay, well, it's pretty much guaranteed at this point that as soon as I talk trash on a single unit or unit type, it's going to show me some kind of unique scenario where it's useful. But suffice it to say, these bull tanks are going to be devastating to any of the units that they should manage to come across. Having a really hard time pushing up this hillside here, and the agitators, pardon me, are taking advantage of it. With over 5,000 metal worth of gauntlets here, you could easily have gone into T2 and a full-blown T2 economy at that. Commander goes down, taking down one of those agitators with it. Now they're struggling to fire away without the proper vision. Sheldon's on top of the base with the mammoth support here. Very unbeatable, those mammoth, if you don't have the very specific tools to do it. You need starlights or you need sharpshooters. Mammoth's just too sturdy to be countered by basically anything else. There they go. Marching their way towards the orange base, the back line of the orange base with the T2 lab down. Only the tick spam remains, and the mammoth are going to be perfectly content to blast away at that. Vanasha nicely winning his lane here with the support of the green commander, Arn and L. Southern side overwhelmed. Rocket spiders, or pardon me, termites actually, the heat ray spiders crawling their way up along this hillside. Look at that. Taking cover on the other side of the hill where these grunts can't travel. And then popping their heads up to do a little bit of damage. Very, very cheeky, very nicely played right there by the purple commander. Applying a little bit of pressure with the Sheldon ball over here, and then popping the termites up to do a little bit of flanking damage. Rattlesnake coming up in the back line, but I don't think it'll be the savior that the yellow player's hoping for. Those T2 mechs have been offline for too long. Oh, do we have an LRPC? We sure do. Okay, hold on. Let me show you the range of this. Yeah, look at the range of this. Can hit all the way down to these bases on the southern side right here. Not that it's terribly necessary, as the bulls are now in the back line. They're AoE perfect for dismantling all that tightly knit T1 eco infrastructure. And with an unparalleled swiftness, managing to blast apart everything in the backline. T2 Lab in a lot of trouble here as well. Yeah, those construction turrets trying to dismantle the tanks, but pop they go. And just like that, the red commander loses it all to just a couple of those bulls in the backline. Now, to be fair, the bulls are 950 metal apiece, so this was easily several thousand metal worth of commitment to get these into the backline. But for the amount of damage you've done and for the amount of production you've stalled, I would certainly say that these bulls have gotten their immense value, their weight in gold back, and some more. Zartank's here. The heavy tank of the Cortex faction. Almost the same cost as a bull, actually. I believe it's 1,200 metal? 1,600 metal. Okay, so actually quite a bit more expensive than the bull. Pardon me. Almost double the cost. A little bit less than double the cost right here. Resbots to pick all of it up. Oh, and it looks like with the bulls in the back line, with the termites crawling down, and with most of the red team defeated, a little bit of a one-sided stomp, but definitely an excellent, excellent showcase of exactly how powerful that support can be up against the tech here. An interesting race between the green commander and the red commander to get the T2 up and running versus getting just about 1 million ticks out on the field. And in the end of the day, it's going to be the ticks that win the game. Thanks a ton for watching. I sure hope you enjoyed. And once more, of course, feel free to sign up for the Bar Fight Nights. It's going to be taking place tomorrow, Saturday the 7th? Yeah, Saturday the 7th. It's going to be a blast, and I sure hope to see you there. I'll be commentating a whole bunch of those games, and it should be a wonderful, wonderful time. Tune in otherwise if you're not interested in playing, but maybe you want to watch the event. I'll be casting it live on the official Beyond All Reason Twitch. But other than that, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the very next game of Beyond All Reason. Peace out, everybody.